writing and in the first one?
I think I became much more self-aware, just having other bodies in relation to you, like so proximate. It made it tougher actually to feel like make that external attention, and then I attempted to maybe hear possibly if anyone else was making sounds. Yeah, it's just a bit more difficult actually because I was,
Were you aware of your body more?
Yes.
And of ours as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was more thinking about, especially with the tracking part, what other people were tracking, if they track also the same sound. And so I just, because we kind of shared the same perspective, I was thinking about who pays attention to what in this particular situation.
Did that interrupt your listening? Did the thinking interrupt your listening?
Yeah. It was kind of distracting. And also then to me, before when I was listening, I stood here, and it's completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the shadow, like the shadow from the BQE.
The shadow, the way it blocks the sound, or the way it actually feel the heat on your body?
No, the way it blocks the sound. Yeah, maybe it's a curious thing to do. Just go
a few feet.
Steps.
Sure.
And it's like completely different.
Sure.
So I had to deal with that difference too.
Anybody else? I mean, again, this is not like
reaction.
super complicated.
I think I felt less self-aware somehow.
Really?
Yeah, I think I felt kind of safer.
But when you when we
were sort of all I was very aware of people passing by and the reactions, the other outer reactions.
So, but there's still a kind of interior sort of shifting, right?
There's also something else because I'm listening.
So
everything.
You're here. He's like got all kinds of multiple things. Listening within listening.
Well, there's something interesting about listening through one of these machines that it makes everything exterior.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like, I think you can't help but try to track because, or the idea of, I guess, filtering is harder because everything is there.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's I'm not being articulate, but.
Well, the sort of question that I want to pose by making these small shifts, and we can come up with like 50 different exercises we could do to get at these shifts, maybe in a better way, or other places, or is it the sort of the relationship between, on the one hand, the sort of mode of attention or mode of subjectivity where there is the self and there is the world, versus there's a kind of interpenetration between self and the world. There's an intersubjective awareness of self in relation to others, and that can actually be a sensorial quality, but it's also like ideological or emotional quality, that there's connections between how we access our senses and then how we build self-images or concepts of what the self is. That these things sort of are always shaping each other. So the sort of the projection of information is out there, and me as the subject who listens and tracks is sort of kind of dominant in terms of Western ideas of selfhood, and the dominance of vision as the sort of screen, this external thing. But listening is kind of interesting for me because it's very hard to not accept sound as being internal as well. And the more we can do as we do this, to like get back to whatever formula we can that reminds us of this sort of complicated inside-outside perception, the better. And whether you want to call it a resonant, as opposed to I kind of called it vigilance versus resonance, right? This one is kind of like tracking this outer reality and screening things out. And the other one where it's hard to separate, I'm implicated in the outer reality, and it's implicated in me. And it may be kind of harder to draw that line. What is up with the drivers here? This is like the best corner.
It was the police.
Was it? Yeah. Oh, great. So again, in terms of like the relationship to warfare, and this kind of self and enemy, or like the object of surveillance or the object of domination, as a vigilant mode of attention and perception and ideology. versus a sort of resonant mode of attention or perception or ideology, wherein like I can't conceive of self as something separate, and that any conception of self of any kind acknowledges that the world is always present in my body as sensation, and it happens through me, and so therefore I can't like track it in the same way, I can't target it in the same way. So I'm kind of using like really sort of basic perceptual exercises to try to connect perception to ideology, I guess. And I think they're connected. To me, it makes sense that they're connected. Not that I know how exactly they become connected, you know. Okay, so these are sort of the place where I wanted to start. Do we want to repeat it? Do we think like this is a good enough place? We can always come back, like later we go, okay, well how about I forgot about the whole resonance thing. You know, I have moments where I'm like listening outward and I forget about trying to experience this as an internal kind of listening, and we'll come back to like huddling or cuddling or whatever it is that we need to do to kind of remember the relationship between the inside and the outside of the body.
So wait, I just want to make something clear. You're making a distinction between the vigilance and resonance modes of attention as internal and external.
Yeah, but not only. I think to resonant to me is not so much internal versus external. It's that it's a kind of it sort of moves us away from that opposition between internal and external. I almost can't even say, well, that's external and this is internal, right? In that anytime I think about something that's internal, I also recognize it as reflected intersubjectively with others. And every time I think something is external, I also recognize that it's part of me, you know? So I think vigilance is about like internal, external realities, self and other, and resonance maybe has more to do with a different sort of conception of the subject. I'm also interested in phenomenology, but not in the subject that knows version of phenomenology, but in the kind of intersubjective knowledge idea. That whatever we're doing as we perceive or make sense, make meaning in the world, that's a collective process at all times. And I think we often lose access to that awareness somehow. You know, like that what I have on is actually a collective effort. You know, that the language that I'm now using is actually a collective production. It's not mine, you know? So anyway, as we're doing other listening things, if we lose sight of the kind of intersubjective aspect to it, we can just stop and go back to the like doing the same thing but huddled. So they don't have to go in a row. We can always come back and pick up on something and go, let's throw that back in. I'd like to reinforce the distinction if I can, or something. Okay.
I had a thought about the sort of tracking thing. I guess, I mean, in the second huddling exercise, I felt that for me it was like there was a moment when this cab drove by, and I guess everyone is really like looking at like either like at the ground or something else. But for some reason, that to me was easy to track. But then I also sort of like found myself thinking about all the presumptive qualities of what it means to track something, especially with sound, which sort of I think by its very nature sort of preempts localizability in a way. So like there is nothing trackable or objectable about the sound that we are receiving from that cab. It doesn't belong to its sound.
No, but it's all about attention. We make it trackable. Does that make sense? When we track it, we make a phenomenon that's dispersed into an object.
Yeah, but I mean, but there is a sort of a presumptive kind of there is a making that goes along with that. Yes. And then in another way, I mean, it sort of goes to say something about this as a social making.
A social production, right. Well, attention, I don't think forms of attention are like genetically wired. I think we're always making our modes of perceiving and our modes of paying attention to the world that are constructions and that impose a certain notion of what a phenomenon in the world is. By tracking sound, we make it be something and kind of not access it as something else, as an open process. I was thinking about how we are being tracked, actually, as people are driving by and we're in this small group.
Well, actually, I have been tracking our own group.
Yeah.
I think in this very noisy environment, we are the quietest, the quiet subject.
Right. And we have to always screen out, right? If we want it, when we're listening, we're doing one thing. When we're talking, we're like screening
And
out
also,
that.
it's very obvious that we drew a lot of attention.
Yes.
The people honking and
Yes.
So I was
Yeah.
not really tracking what is really around.
Right. So I mean, part of the whole kind of sort of surveillance technologies around preemption, around like identifying potential terrorists even before they're terrorists, right? Is to kind of track anomaly. Is to look not just to track, but to decide what is norm, what is background norm, and then to screen that out and track what seems to be abnormal or deviant. And in the history of psychology, that's been the way that that mental deviance has been defined, and social deviance and political deviance. But like we are an anomaly at this point as a space. We're creating a space that is really anomalous, and people are signaling, and they're tracking us. And they're screening everything else out. Here's the street. It is what it is. And then here's this thing, and I'm going to like isolate it and track it, pull it out.
If I can mention something,
Yeah.
For me, it was different. My position was quite important for me because these sounds which were behind me was different than the sounds what was here. Because I was here in the circle, but the sounds behind me, the background was really. The perception was different than these sounds. Maybe these sounds were like I was more concentrated. Maybe the bodies were like speakers for me because I could be more concentrated in this circle because I could hear better these sounds. Yeah.
Right, when you were in the
yeah.
circle. Yeah. So
It
it
was
changed
strange and I really
it's changed
enjoyed
your
it.
actual
Yeah.
acoustic
Yeah.
apparatus.
And
Yeah.
that's what I enjoyed. More.
Yeah. Did anybody else here feel that their acoustic perceptiveness changed? Like maybe you could actually use your apparatus differently?
Do you think it was because of your circle, or was it just because of what's in front of you and what's behind you? I mean, when we were not in the circle, was there resistance?
Yeah, it was really different. I could be more concentrated in circle.
Maybe because there's this sort of, we also formed a kind of center. Like maybe if we weren't in a circle, we were in a pile, it would be different. I don't know. We could try. Like that's what I mean. Like this stuff, if we had more time, what I would love to do is like each time we get together, we do a couple of these and then go, okay, now let's explore it. Maybe it's, what is it about the fact that we formed a circle, which is to say we formed a closed perimeter with a center that created this sense of focus and tracking in a certain way. Whereas if we did a line or a pile or 2x2s, that it might be different.
Yeah.
The fact that we're standing on a corner where we're exposed on different sides of the body is different than if we go somewhere else. So for me, these are little pointers to how this kind of simple perceptual stuff can actually be kind of a fruitful place to explore all kinds of other things. And to do so in like a very personal way too. I think we would all form different exercises or something. Okay, I want to try number 3, if that's okay. And you want to get comfortable maybe sitting or something? Because maybe we might do this one twice. Sometimes it goes easily and sometimes it doesn't. It also depends on what's happening around us. So I'd like to suggest that we kind of relocate here and we give this one a go and see where we get with it. Would you like to join me?
We're gonna create a horizon.
We're gonna listen for it and see if it exists, okay? But maybe just in a little bit more controlled situation than the corner, so it helps. And maybe get comfortable because we might stay, instead of 2-3 minutes, we might stay 4 or 5. We might repeat it. So the notion here is, like visually what a horizon is right, the sort of space to the farthest thing. And we kind of know that the horizon isn't really something there, right? The horizon isn't like, oh, there's the horizon. The horizon moves, It's not a thing, it's not an object. It's not like saying, here's the bottle and there's where it is. It's not the same thing. The horizon is a relationship between the subject viewing and the thing in space, the distance. So we're going to try to listen for a notion, a concept that's actually quite prevalent